Before the sun had even dried the dew off the streets of Ouagadougou, President Ibrahim Traoré was already on the move. The city was just waking up, vendors setting up, goats bleating, pots clanging in kitchens. But Traoré wasn't putting on a suit or heading to a meeting. Today wasn't about speeches or cameras. Today, something deeper weighed on his heart. The justice system he swore to defend had been whispering back at him in painful truths about poor people locked up for years without real trials, about corruption buried deep in prison walls. He stepped out of the palace in a plain brown shirt. No motorcade, no warning. Just his voice cutting through the early morning hum. "Drive me to the central prison." His driver was stunned. "Sir, what about your security?" "No warnings. I want to see what's really going on in there." With only 2 unmarked cars, the president of Burkina Faso drove through his capital like any other man. They passed colorful markets, kids playing with homemade footballs, people laughing over grilled meat. None of them knew their president wasn't heading to a press event. He was on his way to a place most avoid, the dark heart of the justice system. 40 minutes later, the city noise faded. In its place came a heavy silence. The central prison stood tall and gray, razor wire glinting in the sun. The air felt thick with hopelessness. Guards froze when they saw him. One stammered, "Mr. President, we had no notice." "That's why I'm here. Open the gate." Inside, chaos. The warden rushed to meet him, sweating and nervous. "Your Excellency, if we had known..." "I'm not here for your preparations. I'm here for the prisoners. Take me to them." They walked down narrow halls echoing with coughing, shouting, and the clang of metal doors. The smell hit hard. Sweat, urine, and decay. In the main block, prisoners stared in disbelief. Some stood. Some whispered. Some looked at him with eyes that had forgotten what hope felt like. But Traoré didn't keep his distance. He walked into their world. He shook hands. He listened. He asked questions. One man said he'd been locked up for 3 years over a theft he denied, his wife and kids visiting only when they could afford the bus fare. Others shared similar stories. Some were too afraid to speak. Others wept, overwhelmed that someone in power was finally listening. Then, in a dark cell at the end of the corridor, the visit changed everything. A man sat alone, head down, unmoving. He didn't look up when the president arrived. When he finally did, his eyes told a painful story. Not anger, not defiance, just deep, quiet suffering. "What's your name?" Traoré asked gently. "Emmanuel," came the dry whisper. "How long have you been here?" 7 years. 7 years. The man looked like a ghost, clothes in rags, beard long, eyes hollow. Traoré leaned closer. "What were you accused of?" "They said I stole money from my boss, but I didn't. His nephew wanted my job. Money went missing. I had no lawyer, no help. The judge didn't even look up. 15 years. He snapped his fingers. Just like that. Traoré's jaw tightened. The man's story screamed injustice. No appeal, no defense. His wife had left. His letters went unanswered. "I found peace in here," Emmanuel said softly, tapping his head. In silence, the president turned to the warden. "Bring me this man's file, every record, every name. I want it on my desk by sunset." That night, Traoré sat in his office reading through Emmanuel's file. It was a mess. Barely any evidence, no real investigation, no defense. The judge who sentenced him? A corrupt man who'd been fired 2 years ago for taking bribes. It was clear. Emmanuel had been framed, wrongfully imprisoned. Traoré summoned his justice minister immediately. "Explain this," he demanded, holding up the file. "Explain how we let this happen. Sir, legally we can't just overturn." "Can't seek justice?" the president snapped. "Can't correct this nightmare?" His voice dropped. "We fix this. Tomorrow, form a review team. Independent lawyers, human rights workers, real people. Reopen this case and investigate his accuser, Laurent Guerre, deeply." What followed was intense. Within 2 days, the team uncovered a pattern. Laurent Guerre had used the justice system as a weapon. He'd falsely accused at least 5 workers before Emmanuel. All were poor. All had no legal help. All convicted quickly. It was a system built to crush the voiceless. Emmanuel's confession? A forgery. The financial records? Manipulated. There was no real case, just lies. When the investigators showed their findings to Traoré, one said plainly, he was framed from the beginning. The next morning, Traoré returned to the prison. This time, he brought the media. Emmanuel didn't know what was coming. Then, he heard that voice again. Emmanuel, Traoré said, standing in front of the cell, documents in hand. You were betrayed. By a man you served. By a judge who sold justice. By a system that crushed you because you had no voice. On behalf of Burkina Faso, I am sorry. And today, you're going home. Tears filled Emmanuel's eyes. Is this real? Yes, said Traoré. You're free. The cell door creaked open. Emmanuel stepped out, unsure on his feet, stunned. And then the prison erupted. Prisoners cheering, pounding on bars, crying. Hope exploded through the walls. Outside, hundreds gathered. When Emmanuel walked through the gates into the sunlight, the crowd roared. Reporters shouted questions. What will you do now? Emmanuel stood quietly. I have nothing left, but I have the sun, I have air, and I have hope. Maybe that's enough. President Traoré took him not to a government office, but to a guest house. There, Emmanuel had a hot shower, clean clothes, real food, small miracles. That night, over tea, Traoré asked, before all this, what did you dream of? I wanted to be a teacher, Emmanuel said, to help kids build better lives. Then that's what you'll do, said the president. We'll make it happen. But Traoré knew this wasn't just about one man. If Emmanuel had been buried alive for 7 years, how many more were still lost in the system? He launched Operation Justice Light, a national audit of long-term prisoners, especially those without legal representation. His ministers warned of political fallout. He didn't care. We fix it, he said. We shine a light on every shadow. The operation was groundbreaking. In 6 months, over 2,000 cases reviewed, 347 innocent people found, judges exposed, corrupt systems dismantled, and Guerre, now in prison himself. Emmanuel visited him once. Justice isn't revenge, he said. It's making sure no one else suffers like I did. Traoré gave Emmanuel a new job, special presidential advisor for prison reform. Emmanuel returned to prisons, not as a victim, but a voice. In one town, he found a man held for 12 years without trial. In another, 3 women jailed simply for being poor. He pushed for legal aid, mental health support, job training. Freedom, he told a foreign diplomat, isn't just walking out of prison, it's having a chance to live after. Thanks to Traoré's backing, Burkina Faso became a model of reform. Legal aid centers opened nationwide. Judges were retrained. An independent prison board was created, chaired by Emmanuel himself. 1 year after his release, Emmanuel returned to the prison, this time as a guest of honor. The cells were cleaner. Inmates had books, classes, advisors. At the gate, a plaque read, "Justice delayed is justice denied, never again." Standing before the crowd, Emmanuel said, "A year ago, I believed the world had forgotten me. I was wrong. It simply wasn't listening. Today, we listen. Today, we rise." Traoré stood beside him. "Sometimes," he said, "a leader's greatest strength is knowing when to follow." And as Emmanuel looked at his old cell, now filled with sunlight and law books, he didn't feel anger. He felt purpose. Because justice, he now knew, isn't a destination. It's a fight, one that never ends. To the Chronicle Traoré family, thank you. Your belief, your voice, your fire makes stories like this impossible to ignore. Stay with us. Subscribe, share, and ask yourself, who is the Emmanuel in your country still waiting to be seen? The light is rising. Be part of it.